feel that She-Hulk is going to be a lot like Thor: Love and Thunder. If you could look past that movie's obvious flaws and still enjoy it for the fun romp, the fun sexy romp that it was, then you'll like She-Hulk. But if you couldn't get past the issues with Thor: Love and Thunder, well then I think you're going to have a similar issue with She-Hulk. All right, so I have just watched She-Hulk episodes 1 through 4, and there are 9 episodes total in the season. Each episode, which airs one a week, so this Thursday you get one, is under 30 minutes so far, not including credits, and every episode in the first 4 has a fun little end credit scene. So make sure you stick around through the end credits, which are fun themselves. And I think that it's basically, so far, the end credit scene is a gag. It's not like adding anything new to the story. You know, usually an end credit scene is supposed to get you excited about the next episode. But these are like fun little gags. And to me, it played like these were gags that were cut from the show, and they were like, well, instead of throwing these away, why don't we stick them at the end of the episodes? And I think that was a great idea. I think it very much fits the tone of the show. And they're good gags, so I wouldn't throw them away. One of the gags is so good, I can't wait to talk to you about it. But they're gags. Again, they're gags. And just because I know you're chomping at the bit to see him, Daredevil has not yet shown up in episodes 1 through 4. All right, so the review embargo for She-Hulk is this Wednesday, the day before it releases, now on Thursdays. So this is a business breakdown about She-Hulk's business prospects, where I think I'm going to take a look at it from a business perspective, and then on Wednesday when I do my review, we'll look at it from a creative perspective. So I have 4 thesis statements. You ready? Number 1, Tatiana Maslany is She-Hulk. And while I do love Wanda so much, I have to say, Jennifer is instantly my favorite female MCU character. Although, I think that she will overall not be as popular as Wanda because of the way she's designed. I think the She-Hulk fan base will be small but potent. I love her. I love her so much. 2, the MCU is expanding way too rapidly. The quality has already become quite poor, and now I think we're starting to cross over into a little bit insulting. Like they think we'll watch whatever they put in front of us. And to some degree, that's true. But that doesn't mean we're not going to be upset about it and insulted. And I think you can see from the ratings from Ms. Marvel that is not totally true anymore either. 3, the She-Hulk comic that this is based on did not sell well. And I don't think that this show has worked hard enough to compensate for that, to try and avoid the same fate. And I loved that comic. If you didn't like the She-Hulk comic, then the recent ones, that's also going to be a big red flag for your enjoyment of this show. And 4, this show really overdoes it with the feminism. I don't know if overdoes it is the right term. I guess I would say they don't do a good job balancing it out. And that's a criticism coming from a massive feminist. So you know it's a lot. All right, so let's discuss those 4 statements in that order. All right, so She-Hulk has arrived. Tatiana Maslany's She-Hulk not only leaps off of the comic book page, but in my opinion, is an improvement. Better than she's ever been. This Jennifer Walters is the next evolution in the depiction of the modern career woman. And if you just threw up in your mouth a little bit, then again, I don't think this show's for you. But if you squeed with delight, then oh my God, this is so great. I love it. And I think she's insanely relatable to modern career women, which is a pretty specific group. And I don't know how much broad appeal she's going to have because of other choices that were made, which we'll discuss in just a moment. Now, unlike Wanda, Jennifer's problems, even being She-Hulk, don't really seem that bad compared to the really serious problems that people actually face. So while I feel bad for She-Hulk and certainly see why she's sad sometimes, I'm like, at the end of the day, I mean, I think that I understand why you're sad, but I don't think you can really ask anyone else to be sad for you. It's like that's the issue. I find Jennifer Walters' story, personally, in these first 4 episodes to be, at moments, quite sad, compelling, and moving. But I'll just say it. I don't think a lot of people are going to feel sorry for a successful, upper-middle-class, white, straight, confident career woman who's really, I think someone should have brought this up during the development meetings, whose few problems are really her own fault. Like most of the problems, you're like, I think these would be easily fixable if, we just talked about them. I mean, like, it's not like, oh man, I don't know how she's going to solve her problems. You're like, I know, it's obvious, it's clear. I mean, I think there's some interesting commentary on the old Rita Hayworth quote that some of you might have heard, and I'll paraphrase just to make sure I explain it properly. But Rita Hayworth complained. Rita Hayworth actually had a very hard time finding someone to be married to. And she, in fact, was infamous for chasing her makeup guy around the trailer. And he was like, Rita, I'm married. So she had a very hard time. And one of the things she famously said was that men go to sleep with the movie star Rita Hayworth, and then they wake up disappointed when they're next to the, real me. Rita Hayworth without the Rita Hayworthness. But in this scenario, I think that the difference between Jen Walters and She-Hulk is really not that substantial. So if Jen just took the time to blow out her hair, hey, I get it. It's a lot of work to blow out your own hair. Although I did just buy a hair product tool that makes it a lot easier. I should tell Jen Walters about it. But anyway, if she just blew out her hair like She-Hulk and put a little more makeup on, and a lot of women do that when they're, some guy sleeps over or their romantic partner sleeps over. It's like a famous thing. I think that she wouldn't be having the issue that she has on the show. I mean, the She-Hulk here really, again, is just a bigger, slightly curvier Tatiana Maslany with better hair and makeup. I mean, they didn't make that big of a difference between the two of them. I mean, Jennifer's biggest problem on this show, in my opinion, and this seems like such a superficial commentary and things for us to discuss, but that's what this show is. It's impossible to talk about the show, and if someone wasn't watching it would be like, this seems really superficial, and you'd be like, it is, but I'm still invested in it. All right, so anyway, I think Jennifer's biggest problem is that she wants to have her cake and eat it too, and that's not sympathetic at all. You're like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. She's like, darn it. Also, we'll touch on the feminism of this show in its own section at the end of the video, but in terms of the She-Hulk conversation and whether or not she's a sympathetic character, at least in the first 4 episodes, this show seems to take an aggressive anti-male stance, which again, I wish someone had pointed out to them in development. I think that at least in the first 4 episodes, they're treating men disdainfully, not taking them seriously, and or making fun of them. Men are not a big part of Jen Walters' world in this show, at least the first 4 episodes. And she doesn't seem interested in fixing that beyond finding someone to have sex with. She doesn't even seem interested in having a boyfriend. She just seems interested in a hookup. And that's part of the She-Hulk persona, to be fair. Now you might be like, what's wrong with that? Some women are like that. But here's the thing. The largest consumers of comic books and comic book related content, including adaptations, are men. That's the foundation of any comic book property if you want it to succeed. So why would you alienate that audience? You need to keep the men and then bring in, because the MCU wants to expand their appeal, and then you bring in, although we'll talk about why I don't think that's going to work, and then you would try and bring in women who are interested in or audiences who are interested in a modern career women's study to add to the group. You don't want to kick the foundation out of what makes MCU so successful. All right, next up, MCU expansion. Kevin Feige, honestly, you can slow down a little bit. Because while we're very excited about each upcoming entry and all the characters they introduce, they're coming fast and furiously, man. You're like, whoa, that's so many new characters. They're getting so rushed and sloppy at this point that when we get them, and I know many of you are experiencing this because we talk about it a lot, it's not satisfying. You're like, oh, I was so excited about this, and it actually wasn't that great because you rushed it. In fact, the first episode of She-Hulk is so rushed and sloppy, for a moment, I didn't think that it was complete. Of the 4 episodes they gave us, only 4 was not complete. And I only think it wasn't complete in terms of the VFX. It looked complete to me. I'll just tell you now, 4 was my favorite episode so far. But anyway, the first episode, I was like, man, that's trash in some ways. But I mean, I still enjoyed it. But I mean, I was like, this is sloppy. I mean, in fact, I felt like I watched the first episode on fast forward. Her origin story took 2 minutes, maybe 5. But then I was like, I can't believe this. All right, and some of the ways they cheap out on having to show someone hulking out, particularly Bruce Banner, are pretty shocking. We'll go over it. I don't want to have any spoilers, but you were like, you would be like, it almost seemed like comical. Like they were like, yeah, we can't afford to have Bruce Banner Hulk out. So we're going to get him right to the precipice and his face is going to turn green and Mark Ruffalo is going to make a funny face and then we're going to cut away. And you're like, really? Also, I'm about halfway through the season with 4 episodes out of 9, and there's still no clear villain or even main storyline. It really plays like a week to week. I mean, there's like a loose main storyline, but it's mostly a week to week. But then I feel the episodes should have been 45 minutes to an hour to make that okay. I feel like I said, the MCU is starting to take its fan base for granted, and feels we'll watch anything. But again, Ms. Marvel's low ratings prove that is not becoming the case. I know, shocking. And I liked Ms. Marvel. There's similarities between the two in terms of the mistakes that they made, and we'll talk about that with the feminism section. But before that, we have one other one to go, and that's She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Now, this is about the comic. The most famous She-Hulk solo comic, The Sensational She-Hulk, ran for 60 issues, which at the time when it ended in 1994 was the longest run ever for a female-led Marvel comic, already in 1994. Again, I told you, largely guys read comic books, so you have to really appeal to that fan base if you want to have a successful property. And I think that, that comic was famous for being very sexy and flirty, very funny. That's where she started breaking the fourth wall. An equality that Tatiana Maslany's Jennifer Walters has here and there in this show. And I think at that moment, when she's doing the sexy, flirty stuff, breaking the fourth wall, I think that's by far when she is at her most appealing to a broad fan base. And I wish that there was more of that in the show. I'm like, this is where you're really firing on all cylinders. However, Dan Slott decided to focus on She-Hulk as a lawyer, and that's the pitch that's the main thrust of this adaptation they've decided to do. They decided to adapt that comic, not the more successful one. All right, so I'd be like, again, I'd be raising my hand a lot in development meetings. I'd be like, but that comic book was way more successful. And they'd be like, whatever, we like this one. And I loved Dan Slott's comic too. It was so good, it got great reviews. But it did not sell well. Even though Marvel gave the She-Hulk lawyer storyline 3 different chances. They launched that comic 3 different times, and it still got canceled. After 12 issues the first time, it lasted 33 issues the second time, which is pretty darn good. And then again, when it came out again, just 12 issues. So not popular. So that makes me nervous that even though I liked the comic and I liked the TV version of the comic, it's not a big audience. It's not broad appeal. I mean, they're trying to say, like, look at all the guest stars we're going to have. Like, that's a big thrust of the ad campaign for She-Hulk. But I got to tell you, 4 episodes in, so far this isn't a show that you need to watch right away when it drops. I think you'd be fine watching it at the end of the day on Thursday. I mean, you're not going to be like, oh, my eyes are open. I better turn on Disney Plus and watch this show. And that is how every show that airs on Disney Plus should be. I mean, I don't understand why that's not clear to them. Like, I know a lot of you are like, Blaze, Ghost Rider? That's not Johnny Blaze. And I feel bad because that's part of 4, my favorite episode. But I mean, a lot of people are going to be like, this isn't Johnny Blaze. What? So why set people up for disappointment with an episode that is good? Like, it's just really ridiculous. All right, finally, let's do this. Feminism. Oh, man. And I love feminism. I'm a feminist. Now, to promote this show, the MCU had a press conference like they do with all Disney Plus shows and all movies. But for this one, they were like, hey, let's do all women because we're promoting, I guess, girl power, right? And I was like, first of all, Kevin Feige gets a lot of attention, and he usually says something at a press conference that everyone's like, oh, look what he said. Like when he promoted Thor: Love and Thunder, he announced that Marvel was going to Comic-Con, and everyone wrote a story about it, and it got a lot of press for Thor: Love and Thunder. So I want She-Hulk to succeed. That's my goal, not promoting. And also, I don't like this like all women, all men stuff. It's like, it's a pendulum effect, I guess. But we're all supposed to be together. I mean, you want everyone to watch the show, don't you? So I would have had Kevin Feige there. I mean, I understand why he did it, but I think it was a mistake. Also, there are really talented guys on this show, which I'll talk about in my non-spoiler review, and I'll highlight them week to week, but I think it would have been nice to have them at the press conference. Like, Larry from Perfect Strangers is on this show. How do you not have him, Mark Ruffalo, and Wong at the presser? Wong actually has a lot to do in the first 4 episodes. Well, maybe not all of... There's a lot of Wong. He could have definitely promoted this show. Now, Ms. Marvel made the mistake of depicting Pakistani Americans as the A storyline instead of the B storyline. It should have been superheroing first. Then, I thought the commentary on Pakistani Americans, to be clear, and the history of Pakistan and India was fascinating. But it was, that's not why people tune in to a Disney Plus Marvel show. That has to be a fun addition. And Ms. Marvel paid the price in the ratings for that decision. And She-Hulk makes a similar mistake in that feminism becomes the A storyline and superheroing the B storyline, at least 4 episodes in. I know that the MCU is trying to bring, as I said, new audiences into the fold with the different types of shows. They're like, this is supposed to bring in, new people to the MCU. But the show is too superhero-y and cartoonish for any women who aren't already watching Marvel who would be interested in a very honest and deep commentary on what it means to be a career-oriented woman today, right? And for people who like superhero shows, again, mostly guys, I don't think they're going to want to sit through so much of that commentary to get to so little superheroing, right? You're not even rewarding them for sitting through all that commentary. You're like, thanks guys for sitting through the horrors of being a woman today. Here's a big fight. That's how they, 4 had more of a balance, which is why I think it worked. Episode 4. And then also, a lot of the times, the conclusion as to why modern career women are having problems is men. And so again, I don't know why they'd be like, oh yes, let me watch the next episode that says I suck. All right, so in conclusion, 4 episodes in, I really like She-Hulk. I think it's great, even though I can clearly see that the show is deeply flawed. There's just other aspects about it that I love so much that I just am like, okay, it's a mess, but it's a beautiful mess. It's a fun mess. But I just feel like there's not going to be I just feel like some of us will really like it, and I don't know how big that group is going to be, though. At least it's fun and sexy, and I wonder if that'll be enough sugar to help all the medicine go down. It's a lot of medicine. So be sure to come back for my non-spoiler review on Wednesday, where again I go over my creative thoughts on the show, and join me for weekly breakdowns every Thursday, where we'll discuss Easter eggs. There are some Easter eggs. There is one very big development that I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about. Other MCU developments and stuff like that. And then, of course, we will talk about the show's complex and unflinching look at modern feminism. Oh boy! I think it's interesting, and maybe I'll help some of you appreciate it more, but that's a tough sell. All right, so share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.